living with EDS is about adaptation. Doctors will have had like a day in med school about EDS and they think they know everything about it.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. This is Navigate with Natalie. This is my first interview podcast. I am so excited for you guys to join me. And my first guest is actually my sister, Elena. Me and my siblings, we have all been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, and she is going to join me in just a few. We're going to talk about our hardships and our triumphs with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. So I'm excited for you guys to join. Let's jump on in. And I am here with my sister, Elena, and we are going to be talking about our invisible illness, our hidden disability, which is Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. So I have a couple questions that I have for you, and if you'd like to share, and hopefully we can, just share our story with others, and maybe people can learn and find inspiration from us. I don't know, something.
Okay.
All right. First question is Ehlers-Danlos. How does it affect your everyday lifestyle?
Yeah, so I always knew I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Ever since I was a baby, when I was a few months old, I was in bubble braces, and then I was always really bendy as a child. I did really well in gymnastics because I could just do splits day one. But my wrists and my ankles were always really weak. That's part of EDS, so that's part of just what I have to navigate on a daily basis is like I can't do too much. I can't do any like high impact activities, high impact sports. I can't go running. I can't play like football or basketball or soccer or anything like that because it's just too much of a risk for dislocations or subluxations or things like that, which, if I put in the work and really like worked on building my muscles around my joints, I would maybe be able to do those type of things, but they're not really things I'm interested in anyway. So
That's okay.
Yeah. So, I have adapted a lot over the course of my life. I would say like living with EDS is about adaptation. Mm-hmm. Doctors will have had like a day in med school about EDS and they think they know everything about it. But I have often, especially when I'm like working with new medical professionals, will ask them if they will do a little bit of research with me and be willing to learn with me. There's a book called The Hypermobility Handbook, which came out about a decade ago, which I think is probably one of the best tools for medical professionals to learn about EDS. So sometimes I've gifted a copy to my new primary care physician. And that's been a good way for us to be able to talk about, what EDS is and how like the comorbidities with other things like POTS or, different other things that a lot of times people with EDS also have. But there's a vascular type of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is very serious, and people with it don't generally live past their 30s. So sometimes when you say how you have EDS, they think it's like a early death sentence, which it really is not.
No. Yeah, I remember I had I was going in for my back surgery and they wanted to do some heart testing and they asked if I've had the EKG and if I had all this and I was just like, no, I mean not recently because like you said I think they assumed I had the VEDS, which we do not, fortunately. But that's one thing before surgery I guess they just want to make sure that there's nothing.
Yeah, you can have like weak valves in your heart and some different things. So I've had EKGs a few different times over the years. Yeah.
Okay. So this kind of went in with you gifting your book. Like, what kind of moments have you experienced that helped you better understand or cope with EDS?
I think having medical professionals that actually understand what EDS is and know what good options are. I found an EDS specialist when I was going through a series of surgeries when I was in my 30s. and the surgeons didn't really know a whole lot about EDS. And so I was able to find this guy in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, who is semi-retired, but he had EDS himself.
Nice.
And he, specialized in it. And so he recommended a couple of different things like brace and some other things, which like helped me like tremendously as I was going through my surgeries and my recovery and my surgery. So finding a community, I think, has been really helpful. There's a couple of online communities for EDS that I've found to be mostly helpful, sometimes a little unhelpful. But overall, I would say finding people to talk to who have it themselves has been the most helpful.
Yes, because there's a little more of an understanding. There's more empathy out there than, because I feel like empathy is a little bit better than sympathy. I know some people try to, oh, I understand what you're going through, but sometimes not really. But yes, having a community is definitely can be very, very helpful. And this is, one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, this show, to kind of make sure people know that there are other people out there like them. You and I, our whole family has been, all of our siblings have had some form of, I don't want to say ailment, but form of disability from having the EDS.
Yeah.
Like you and your hips and hip dysplasia, like myself. We both had hip surgery. You had it later on in life. I had it early on in life. Okay, so I just kind of want to move on, kind of maybe talk about some triumphs that we've had and that you've had, and trying to also coping with everyday life. And can you share a specific example of a time when you overcame a major challenge related to EDS?
I mean, in my mid 30s, I suddenly found myself in a wheelchair for a year. We had to completely redo our house, put in like wheelchair lifts in my car, like put in ramps, like redo the inside so it was all wheelchair friendly. And so just going through all of that was like a huge hurdle, and it was a lot. It was a lot. Like, and getting through that was very difficult because the first surgery that I had was an inappropriate surgery for someone with EDS, and so it failed. And so I had to get a revision surgery, and I had to do my research, and I had to find surgeons who actually had experience with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. So I ended up going to a specialty hospital in New York City. And then I finally got the revision. It ended up having to have a trauma surgeon kind of put me back together because the first surgery had just like broken my pelvis in several places, and it was a nightmare. And so like getting through all of that and still working at the same time, like I remember just being at home in so much pain but not wanting to just do nothing. So like during a lot of that period of a year and a half, like I was still working, and that kept me going in a lot of ways. But it was, getting through the day was a triumph on sometimes just because I was in so much pain. um, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That was crazy. And
Hmm.
the fact that you had to do it all over again, and it was, yeah.
Yeah, if you have EDS, don't get a periacetabular osteotomy. That's
Good to
it's a
know.
bad surgery for someone with Ehlers-Danlos
Oh
syndrome.
goodness. Okay. Wow. Yeah. How can organizations, workplaces, or society at large better support people with a hidden disability like ours?
So I think it's actually really important that when you're in a new job, you go ahead and talk to your HR manager about your Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, because it is, it does qualify you for accommodations. But the HR manager and your coworkers and your boss like aren't going to know that you have it and you need it and you actually like are legally entitled to it unless you disclose it and have a conversation with them about it.
Yeah, because unless you say something, nobody's going to know. Um, but yeah, people with hidden disabilities are um, have access, and then they have the right to ADA rights. And just because,
Accommodations, yeah.
mhm, and just because people can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So it is there. Um, okay. So, kind of leading into this, what advice would you give to others who may be struggling with a hidden disability like ours, but are unsure about speaking up?
I mean, I really think it is a personal decision as to who you want to disclose your invisible illness with, or your hidden disability. Sometimes, folks treat you differently, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like completely understandable if you want to keep it to yourself. But I do think like talking about it gives it more exposure, more light, and people can't understand what you're going through unless you have some kind of conversation
Mm-hmm.
about what it is that's happening to you. But it can be tricky sometimes. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to be looked over for certain things because people make assumptions about what you can and can't do, based on like disclosing what you have. So I think having conversations is important. I think having a community is probably more important. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
finding an online community of like people who have similar situations. Like, there are a lot of EDS groups on Facebook,
Yep.
and they can be really helpful in like people sharing their experiences and helping you navigate your own experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it is hard to speak up and to talk about it. For the longest time, I have not disclosed to a lot of people. But then there came a point where I had to, because I ended up having like really bad back issues, and I had to explain to my employer why I had to keep on leaving to go, take care of my back and stuff like that. So it's very important. And then, fortunately, I did have a boss who was sympathetic, and he understood that that sometimes people do need a little extra time, a little extra help. So that was great, to having people understand. But he wouldn't have known unless I said something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so kind of wrap things up here. How do you envision the future in terms of greater acceptance and understanding of a hidden disability or an invisible illness?
I think I really appreciate some of the celebrities who have invisible illnesses
Mm-hmm.
coming out and talking about them. So there's been a number of like actresses and actors who have come out and let the world know, what Ehlers-Danlos is, and they have it. I know, like, I'm trying to think of like a couple folks.
There's the songwriter singer Halsey.
Halsey,
Mm-hmm.
the person who directed Girls, what's her name? I forget her name.
Dunlap.
Lena Dunham.
I think so.
Yeah, Lena Dunham.
Mm-hmm.
Evie Oddly. If people watch Drag Race, Evie Oddly. Awesome advocate for EDS.
The one girl on The Good Place.
Oh, yes, the
She's talked about, I can't remember her name, but she's talked about it. She did a post where she is like demonstrating her like stretchy skin, because that's
uh-huh.
another form of like a sign of EDS. You have very stretchy skin.
I read a fantasy novel about dragon riders, and the lead character had EDS because the author had EDS. They never actually like said it was EDS, but they described all of the symptoms of like having to put braces on yourself, and like, you know, easily bruisable skin, or things that just like happen to EDS, to folks with EDS. Like you have dislocations, you have subluxations, you get
Mm-hmm.
bruised easily, you twist your ankle, you just like your joints just aren't as good. I mean, one of the things that I wear is I wear this ring, which is actually an accommodation because my fingers bend backwards. Like you can see my fingers bend all the way backwards.
Mine do that too.
And when I write or when I type or whatever, this helps it not, the joints not.
Stabilizes.
Yes.
Yeah. So the ring splints.
Yeah, the ring splints. There's a lot of different cool like accommodations and tools that you can get to like help with the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Yeah. I do need to for sure look into those ring splints myself. I still haven't, because I do have the bendy fingers and everything like that, and it hurts to, like, my thumbs bend certain ways.
You can like just dislocate your thumbs just by like popping them in and out.
Yeah. I learned at a young age I was never going to be able to play the guitar because my fingers bent.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just
but you can get out of handcuffs easily.
Yes. All right. I think this might be our final question. What changes or improvements would you like to see in society regarding hidden disabilities?
I think exposure is an important thing. There's like a National Day of Awareness for Invisible Illnesses now, which I think is important. That more like there's more like acknowledgement of it, people being willing to talk about it. I think that folks actually taking the accommodations in the workplace and not assuming that they don't have those rights. So I think like making sure folks know their rights is important. Not just suffering in silence and not thinking there's anything that can be done about it, because there is. But you have to actually seek it out and advocate for yourself.
Yes.
And get people to help you advocate.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because I think one of the things I've said in a couple of episodes is like, we can do hard things. It is possible. It is out there that the help that we sometimes need. But I don't know, that's just kind of my thing. I can do hard things. We can do hard things. You're proof that you can do hard things. You've not only survived, you have thrived. You still are here, and you are living life, living in North Carolina, and
living on my own.
Yeah.
Doing my thing, working full time.
Yep, still work full time. Yep. And still, and then you're able to overcome the hardships too. And even though, yes, we still live with it every day, pain may still be there every day. I know it is for me sometimes, but we can do it. And I just want to let everyone else know that you can do it. And it's having, like my sister. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Elena. I really appreciate you coming on and being my very first guest. We had to end a little abruptly at the end. The camera battery died out and she had to leave, but I greatly appreciate you joining. Please remember, everyone, we can do hard things. I know it may not be easy, but if we put our minds to it, we can do anything that we want. Thank you again for joining. Have a great day. I can't wait to see you guys next time.